The moment the young woman opened her eyes that morning in the maternity hospital, she felt a strange mixture of peace and dread. Peace, because her newborn baby slept quietly beside her, wrapped in a soft blanket. Dread, because she knew her mother-in-law was coming. The older woman had made her opinion clear from the beginning. She didn't think her son's wife was good enough, and she certainly didn't think she should lie around in the hospital like a queen. Those were her exact words the night before. When the door swung open with a loud scrape, the young mother flinched. Her mother-in-law marched inside as if she owned the place. "Get up," she demanded immediately. "You've rested enough. Other women give birth and go home the same day. You're not made of glass." Her voice was sharp, the tone that always made the young woman shrink into herself. She tried to defend herself, whispering that the doctor hadn't discharged her yet, but the older woman waved it off. "Doctors always make problems where there are none. Your husband needs you home. The child needs to be raised properly, not kept in this place." She reached for the baby's blanket, intending to scoop up the newborn, and panic rushed through the young mother. "Please don't," she said, her voice trembling. "He's sleeping. Please, please stop." But the mother-in-law continued talking over her, lecturing her about responsibility, about tradition, about how a real woman should behave. Each word felt like a stone thrown at her already tired heart. Just as the older woman drew breath to begin another round of scolding, the door opened again. This time, it didn't slam or scrape, it opened slowly, almost respectfully. The mother-in-law turned around with annoyance, ready to snap at whoever dared interrupt her. But the words froze on her tongue. A tall man entered, his presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. He wasn't loud or dramatic, but something about him demanded attention. For a moment, he simply stood in the doorway, observing the scene in silence. The mother-in-law paled. It was her own brother, her older brother, whom she hadn't expected to see at all. He was a quiet man, but when he did speak, everyone listened. "I heard you were visiting," he said calmly, stepping closer. His eyes moved from his sister's stiff posture to the terrified young mother clutching her blanket. Then he saw the baby. Something softened in his expression. "I thought I should check how things are." The mother-in-law tried to regain her confidence. "I was just taking care of things. You know how she is." He raised a hand, and she fell silent immediately. "Taking care," he repeated, his voice low. "Is that what you call shouting at a woman who gave birth yesterday?" His gaze sharpened, and she shifted uncomfortably. "Is that what you call grabbing a newborn without asking? Since when did you forget what kindness is?" The young woman felt her breath catch. No one had ever spoken to the mother-in-law that way, not even her own son. The older woman opened her mouth to argue, but her brother cut her off. "You don't belong here," he said firmly. "Not if you're going to behave like this. Leave." Her jaw dropped. She tried to protest, but he simply looked at her, and that was enough. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her face burning with humiliation. When she was gone, the man approached the young mother with a gentle nod. "You're safe," he said softly. "Take your time. Heal. If she bothers you again, you tell me." For the first time that day, the young woman felt she could breathe. The chaos on the Kelly Clarkson Show began long before the cameras captured the moment that would go viral. Backstage, producers were already whispering that something felt off with the energy of the day. Robert Irwin, usually the sunshine-filled, endlessly polite wildlife expert, had arrived unusually tense. His smile was still there, but it was thinner, stretched too tight, as though held together by sheer effort. He had brought along a small assortment of animals for the live demonstration, nothing dangerous, nothing exotic enough to alarm the crew, just the typical guests he featured on educational shows. But even the handlers noticed he seemed distracted, fumbling with the crates more than usual, glancing around as though expecting something to go wrong. Kelly Clarkson, cheerful as always, tried to lighten the mood during their brief pre-show greeting. "You okay, Robert?" she asked with her warm smile. "You look like you wrestled a kangaroo before breakfast." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just tired," he said. "Long week." That was all he offered before he excused himself to prepare. Once the show went live, everything initially seemed normal. Kelly introduced Robert to thunderous applause. The audience adored him, his kindness, his enthusiasm, his father's legacy. He stepped onto the stage, waved, and placed the animal carrier gently at his feet. Kelly leaned forward, curious and excited. "So, Robert, what do you have for us today?" He crouched, carefully opening the carrier. "This little guy," he began, reaching inside, But the animal shot out like a streak of lightning before he could finish. A blur of fur darted across the glossy stage floor, and Kelly let out a startled yelp that made the audience laugh, at first. Usually, such moments became comedic highlights. But this time, Robert didn't laugh. His expression twisted with frustration, something sharp and uncharacteristic flashing across his features. When the animal scrambled toward his foot, he reacted instinctively, too quickly, and scooped it up with a jerky motion. The creature squealed, and Robert, panicking, flung it aside in a split-second reflex. It tumbled harmlessly onto a padded area of the stage where crew members rushed to catch it, but the moment had already crystallized into something unforgettable. The audience gasped. Kelly's eyes went wide, her microphone picking up a tiny, involuntary, "Oh my God." The cameras wobbled as the operators struggled to follow the commotion. For a moment, Robert stood frozen, chest rising and falling rapidly. Kelly took a cautious step forward, unsure whether to help him or address the audience. Then, almost under her breath but still loud enough for the mic to catch, she whispered, "Get him off my show." It wasn't anger, not at first. It was fear mixed with confusion. She had interviewed celebrities during meltdowns, musicians who cursed live, actors who stormed off, but Robert Irwin losing control was uncharted territory. Producers rushed from the sidelines, signaling to cut to commercial. But before the broadcast faded out, the camera caught one last moment, Robert's shoulders collapsing as though the weight of the world had suddenly pressed down on him. His face shifted from panic to sorrow, then to something like humiliation. The audience's murmurs filled the air, unsure whether to clap, comfort, or sit in stunned silence. Backstage, chaos erupted. Assistants scrambled to secure the animal, which fortunately wasn't harmed. Kelly was guided to her dressing room, still processing what had just happened. Robert stood alone for several seconds before anyone approached him. His hands shook slightly. "I didn't mean to," he muttered, more to himself than anyone in particular. "I just reacted." But the cameras had captured everything, and within minutes, social media had exploded. Clips circulated with captions ranging from jokes to harsh criticism. People debated whether he'd had a breakdown, whether the animal was in danger, whether Kelly had overreacted. Meanwhile, Robert remained silent, staring at the floor, replaying the moment again and again, realizing that no matter how much good he had done in his career, this single mistake would follow him for a long time. When the show finally cut to commercial and the stage lights dimmed, the atmosphere behind the scenes shifted from confusion to a thick, uneasy silence. Crew members rushed around with hushed voices, trying to recover from what had just happened, but the energy felt fractured, as though everyone was carefully stepping around invisible shards of glass. Moments like this, unexpected, chaotic, and deeply human, tended to linger long after the cameras stopped rolling, and this one was no exception. Kelly Clarkson sat in her dressing room, still gripping the small microphone pack in her hand as if she hadn't realized the tech assistant had already unclipped it. Her thoughts were scattered, replaying the scene over and over. She wasn't angry, not truly, she was startled, shaken, and concerned. She wasn't used to seeing guests lose control so abruptly, least of all someone with Robert Irwin's calm, gentle reputation. She wondered if she'd whispered too harshly, if the stress of live television had pushed her to say something she didn't fully mean. But the shock of the moment had triggered an instinctual reaction, one that millions of viewers would likely dissect in slow motion. Across the hallway, Robert stood inside a small green room, hands clasped together, palms sweating. He sat on the edge of the sofa, but couldn't stay still. Every few seconds he stood up again, paced 2 steps, then sat back down. His breathing was shallow, his jaw tight. He had made mistakes before, everyone did, but never one that unfolded on national television in front of millions of viewers. He could already imagine the headlines, the rumors, the edited clips that would strip away context and magnify the worst second of his reaction. A producer, a middle-aged woman with years of experience handling celebrity meltdowns, tapped gently before entering the room. She carried herself with a cautious professionalism. "Robert," she said softly, "the animal's fine. No injuries. Our handlers checked twice." He closed his eyes briefly, relief washing over him, but the guilt didn't fade. I shouldn't have reacted that way, he said. It wasn't dangerous. It just startled me. I don't know what happened. She nodded, understanding more than he realized. Everyone has a moment, she said. But you know how the internet works. His stomach tightened. He knew exactly how it worked. He had grown up in the spotlight, since childhood, but he had always been proud of representing the legacy of respect, care, and gentleness toward wildlife. Today, for a single flash of a second, he had acted against everything he stood for. Meanwhile, Kelly's manager approached her, quietly advising her on what to say once the show resumed. You don't have to throw him under the bus, he said gently. Just explain it was an accident. He's clearly going through something. Kelly exhaled, rubbing her forehead. I know, she said. I'm not mad at him. Just shocked. I've never seen him like that. She stood, fixing her hair in the mirror. I'm going to talk to him before we go back on the air. He doesn't deserve to sit alone with that. As she walked toward the green room, the hall seemed quieter than usual, as though everyone sensed the importance of what would happen next. She knocked softly. Robert looked up, tension visible in every line of his body. Hey, Kelly said gently, stepping inside. Are you okay? He swallowed, unable to hide the shame in his voice. I'm sorry, Kelly. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Kelly shook her head. Robert, you're human. And you've got a whole country watching you every second of your life. That's a lot. Don't beat yourself up more than you already are. His eyes softened slightly. Still, the animal is fine, she assured him. And you will be too. We'll go back out there, explain things honestly, and move on. People respect you. They know your heart. Robert exhaled slowly, a weight lifting, just slightly, from his shoulders. Moments later, when the studio lights came back up and the show resumed, both of them stepped onto the stage together, united in a quiet understanding that even the kindest, calmest people can have moments of fear, imperfection, and vulnerability. And sometimes, it's how you face those moments afterward that matters more than the moment itself.